All right, let's mirror this over to Facebook and then I'll be right back. I'm not going anywhere, but I'll be right back. You guys can talk about.
I see the recording light on the upper left-hand side.
Yep.
Go to our Facebook and click on that link.
There's no real
I tried to do it, but I didn't have all their emails last night.
No worries, no worries. Facebook.
Hey, Jen.
Yeah.
When you get a chance, will you bring the Open So What over here?
So if people want to find us on Facebook, they just go to Paso Wine on Facebook.
It's at Paso Robles Wine
On Facebook.
on Facebook. Yes.
Okay.
Paso Robles Wine. So, all right, we are, we're live and got a few people tuning in over here. I'm just punching all my buttons here. Okay, here we go. So, oh, great. Look at this. We've got a bunch of our regulars and Steve and Martha Hewitt. I don't think you've missed one, have you? From Columbus, Ohio. Thank you again from joining us on our Zoom Hangout. And yes, we did. We did our part. California did. So thanks for noting that. We've got a few others that we see all the time. We've got Helen Schlentz from Maryland. And we've got, who else? Mike Wilkie, we've seen you on here before. Mark Bayer, thank you so much for joining us again. A few other, the Everwines are here, Gail Meredith, Denise Lowe, and I know we've got a lot of people joining us over there on the Facebook side of things. We're gonna let people tune in for that here for a hot minute, and then we'll get to talking here. So hopefully everyone's got some wine in their glasses. If you're on Zoom and I can see you, let us know what you're drinking if you're drinking, and you know, we might comment or we might go. No, just kidding. Only if it's not Paso wine would we do that. So, but let's hang out for just a second here while we wait for things to catch up.
I've got a little fly that's very interested
Yeah.
in getting into my wine, so I got to put my official fly cover on.
Me too.
It looks like we've got a hellos from over on the Facebook side of things. David Rappaport saying hello to Victor. I don't know if he's tagged. And a few other people, somebody from Florida on board, John Rasmussen. Thanks, John, for joining us. So we've got, all right. Cool. Well, let's get started. Oh, and Steve Hewitt, you're drinking Piloto, Problem Child. Nice. Good choice for today. Excellent.
That was like my press today. Was a Problem Child.
Was it? And then I see over on Facebook also, hi to Victor and Pedro from Chino Hills, and that's Peter Rogers saying hello. So,
Hey,
all right.
Chino Hills.
Cool, let's get started. Which means I'm leaving the Facebook side of things. And so my team will actually end up texting me if I need to know anything from that side, because I'm on the Zoom side of things. So, but thank you everyone for joining us again. Once again, my name is Chris Taranto. I'm with the Paso Robles Wine Country Alliance. And we are that marketing organization that likes to promote Paso wines. Today we are hanging out again with a few other producers who have not appeared on our show yet. We've got so many producers here. Honestly, I've got such a list of people that we haven't even touched yet that'll still someday will be appearing on the show. We've got a cool premise today, a little bit of stories behind the labels, and we'll get into those stories. First, I would like to have everybody say hello and introduce themselves. I'll start with Victor. Victor, say hello and who you are and where you're at.
Oh, thanks, Chris. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Victor Abascal, and along with my wife, Jennifer, who's right over here, we started Vines on the Marycrest in northwestern Paso 17 years ago, I think, or so. We came to Paso in 2004. Our first commercial vintage was 2005, and we've been bumbling along ever since. And yeah, welcome. I hope.
Where's your tasting room? Remind everybody where you're at.
We are off of Lake Nacimiento Road, 3 miles from Civilization. And a pretty recognizable landmark is Chronic Cellars, another tasting room. Good friends of ours are right across the street. So about 100 feet away is Chronic Cellars, and you can see Chronic Cellars from the road, but you cannot see Vines on the Marycrest from the road. So you have to kind of duck down our little road and go down about 100 feet, and then you can see us. So, but if you see Chronic, you're really close.
Excellent. Cool. Thank you. Pedro Vargas, Fino Vargas. Thank you for joining us today, Pedro.
Thank you, Chris.
yourself.
Thank you very much. I'm Pedro Vargas, a winemaker here at the very big winery in San Miguel, which is about 7 miles north of Paso Robles. We've been here, I was kidding, we're a very tiny winery. We've been here since about 2011. Our winery opened in 2015. If you've ever ventured north of Paso, there's 13 little wineries that are known as the Pleasant Valley Wine Trail. And we're one of those 13 wineries. So if you ever get a chance, come on by and visit us.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Pedro. Appreciate you being here today. And then we've got Greg and Pamela Martin. Before I let them introduce themselves, it's Pamela's birthday today. Happy birthday, Pamela. Thank you for joining us on your birthday and
Happy
doing
birthday.
Yes.
Happy gratitude.
Cheers.
Cheers. Cheers. All right, please, Greg, Pamela, introduce yourselves and your brand, please.
Well, I'm Greg, and this is Pamela, and we composed the Seven Angels label, and we're very proud to do so. It's in I guess
From our address.
our what?
Our address.
Our address is it's 830 Templeton Road, so we're in the southern part of the Templeton Gap, and we have been here since 2012. And we've been making wine since 2009 over on the west side, and we have 24 acres of vineyard that's planted, and we have more to go. But this is a great start for us, and we've just opened our tasting room about a year and a half ago. So we're the newbies as far as a storefront goes.
Yeah. And newbies, I mean, it's kind of in a way, even though, you know, Victor, you've been making wine and doing this for a little while, but newbies in the sense also as brands of Paso, all 3 of these brands in a way are new to the brand Paso Robles. And that's part of why I put this panel together today. They're also, as you can see, as evidence with Seven Angels, they're couples, they're husband and wife teams that are operating and doing this good work of creating some really fun wines and expressing their personalities in the bottle. But they also have interest. There's Jenny, what's up? How are you?
Jenny.
I tried to convince Vicky, by the way, to come on, Pedro. I don't know if I was that convincing.
She had to run errands. She said she'd come by if she got back in time.
Okay, right on. When she came in to drop off the wines, I was like, come on. All right, so,
Yes.
but everybody has super interesting stories. That's why I wanted to do this. And part of it stemmed from, I think the name Vines on the Marycrest, like that's a really unique name for a winery. And so I'm going to kick it off actually with Victor to tell us a little bit about how you came up with that name. We're going to get into all the names and all of the names of the wines, and we'll tell you what we're drinking and all that good stuff. But Victor, I'd love for you to start off talking about, tell us where this name came from.
Okay, it is, I apologize for how strange a name it is. It was actually, when I was an amateur winemaker is what I called myself back then. And we just kind of carried the idea up here. to Paso. I'm from Southern California, from a little town called Culver City on the west side of Los Angeles. And the name comes from I was an amateur winemaker for a number of years, and I kind of knew in my soul that I was going to be a professional winemaker one day, and I was going to completely change my life. I had pretty much come to the end of my inspiration for what I had been doing for, many, many years. And I caught the wine bug quite severely. And so I was making wine, and a whole bunch of it in Culver City. And I knew I was going to be doing something like this somewhere. I didn't know it was going to be in Paso Robles. I didn't know it was going to be with that pretty gal, but I knew it was going to happen. So I needed to teach myself how to grow some grapes, and I didn't have room in my own backyard to do that. So there at the top of the neighborhood that I grew up in, and I was now living in my family home that I had. My father passed away, and I purchased my family home from my brother and my sister. So we lived about 3/4 of the way up this hill, this hilly neighborhood. And at the very top of the hill is a 14-acre convalescent home run by Carmelite sisters. It's basically a convent, and it's an old folks home for Catholic women. And it's very expensive. And so as a kid growing up, that was my gateway. So when I wanted to ride my motorcycle or ride my bike or go catch snakes and lizards, in the Getty oil fields, I would sneak through the nuns' property. So when I moved back up there, it was just my dog and I was walking my dog every day in the oil fields, and I would sneak through the nuns' property to get through to the oil fields. And I noticed this area where I couldn't see the nuns and they couldn't see me. And I decided to, like, in an instant, that I was going to clear off a whole bunch of their mustard weed and plant a vineyard on their hillside. And the next day I just started doing it. And it grew and grew and grew. It was just going to be, 60 vines, and then it doubled, and then it doubled again. So I forgot to ask them permission, right? So I just started planting a vineyard, never thinking that they would find it. And of course they found it. And they thought it was a marijuana field, a huge one. And they were duly upset, and they were duly frightened. And so they called the police, and the police came and ripped one of my grow tubes off one of my little baby vines, and there was my name on one of the grapevines, because when you buy a grape from a nursery, your name's on the vine. And so the head nun, Irish lady, knew who I was because she knew my mother. And I was summoned to go sort of talk myself out of being arrested. And the story from there is very long, but I was able to keep them from arresting me. And then they slowly kind of morphed into really being behind the idea and really supporting me and going to the Archdiocese of the Carmelites on my behalf to try to advocate for me, because they really liked the idea of this beautiful, because at this point it was really pretty. And the story is very long, and I won't get into what actually ended up happening, but they were so supportive of me after being so upset with me that I decided to name whatever endeavor I ended up doing after them. So the name of the monastery, if you will, is called Mary Crest Manor, and mine were the vines on Mary Crest Manor, so vines on the Mary Crest. And that's a very, very cliff-noted version of a very long story.
Yeah.
And I've heard the long version as well, which is exceptionally entertaining. And I think you need to go and visit Victor and sit down and have a glass of wine with him and get to know that long story. We'll probably tap into little elements of it as well as we go. But so you moved those vines though, didn't you?
I did, yeah. All but the Merlot. I left the damn Merlot behind. Yeah, so the irony is there's actually vines on the Mary Crest vines at vines on the Mary Crest, even though the two things don't have anything to do with each other, so to speak, other than meat. So we have a little vineyard just to my right here where most of those vines ended up. And So there's a nice little rope of history going through it. So
That's
I feel-
cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That's a neat story.
I moved those vines 3 times.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
Wow. Stories like these are, I mean, they're everywhere in the wine industry because it's so interesting how people are able to like name their labels or name their wines. And sometimes it's a little obvious and it's right in front of them as well. But then again, it's what's important to you that helps you kind of create that label and that name. With the Martins and Seven Angels, family is super important to them. And as Pamela was saying earlier, maybe it wasn't on camera yet or what, but today's her birthday, and her daughter, is it your daughter that came to visit and brought your granddaughter along up with as a big surprise to you? And that's the Seven Angels story basically, right?
That is, yes. We have 7 children.
Wow.
And we have 8 grandchildren now. The youngest is 18 months old. And really at this point in life, when people say, what do you want for your birthday? All I say is I want to be with my family. And we've all been suffering from lack of family time with the pandemic. So for them to make this extra super effort to drive up from Long Beach with an 18-month-old to surprise me this morning, that was it. That was the best birthday present I could ask for.
And when you developed your label, did you instantly sit there and say, children, the kids, the Seven Angels? I mean, how did you settle on it?
What, well, we have that name, the Seven Angels, and we do believe, they're all angels at certain times, but it's been a journey with them, and it's been building exponentially, with how they treat this connection, because of the fact that we always, we gather a lot, and we feast a lot. We're big foodies, and so everybody has their input, and some are well-educated inputs and some aren't, but it's very much a family.
But to get back to your question, Chris, when we were coming up with the label, because basically Greg is kind of like Victor, and from the story you told, he grew up in Rialto, and when he was a little boy, his neighbor grew grapes, and he followed him around and learned everything about growing grapes, and his neighbor made wine, and he wanted to make wine. So that was implanted in him very young. Yeah. And when we were coming up with our label, we were talking to lots of our good friends that have wineries, and Norm Benson basically said, whatever you name your winery, make sure it's a story that you're not going to mind telling over and over and over again, because everybody's going to ask you, why did you name your winery Seven Angels? So we thought of all kinds of different names, and then one day we were just talking about family and how much it meant to us, and we're both very spiritual people, and so Seven Angels just kind of came to us.
Yeah. And your backstory too, and how you found yourself to wine. I mean, I think that's actually also really important to this, because, and Greg, I'd love for you, because I've heard you tell it a time or two, but please.
Well, as far as our backstory with the wine is, both of us, I grew up around it at a young age. My father actually helped make their family wine, which was some old vine vineyards, Zinfandel, just near Rancho Cucamonga, and it just came to fruition after a while. I'd been exposed to some great appellations during my stint in the U.S. Coast Guard in the early 70s, and it really just reinstilled those thoughts of my childhood, my youth, and then along came Pamela, and she has this very similar background with that, only it's more food oriented. We
But wait, there's a good story. When I was in college, I went to a Catholic college, and science was like the one thing I did not want to take. And I found out that there was an intercession course called the Biology of Wine, and it was a 1 month course, and it satisfied my biology requirement. So I was like, I'm there. I'm there.
well,
Yeah.
and what did that lead to?
It led to traveling up and down the coast of California with my class, learning how to make wine, very basically learning how to make wine. But then when Greg and I got together, he said to me, I've always wanted to make wine. And I said, okay, let's do it. And then we just didn't really know where to start. So we were visiting a friend in Sonoma who makes wine up there. And we said, so how do we get started? He said, just do it.
Just do it.
Seriously, that's what we did. We just started sourcing fruit and started making wine in 2009.
The irony too is that both of us at an early age, early 20s, we were on different paths before we even knew it. I mean, we were on similar paths with regards to the respect and the passion and love of wine. But when we did finally collaborate, met, fell in love, it was a bond of the wine and the food that just blended us into an amazing marriage and a beautiful family. We're very, very, very grateful.
You got, and I follow you, Greg. I happen to know you because I make my wine where you make yours and everything. And so I know that I see you guys at things, and it's a really neat story of you two coming together and creating this. It's awesome. So I really dig hearing you guys talk about it too, so as well. So that's awesome. And then moving on, I'm sorry, but going over to Pedro, I was trying to answer some stuff over here on the chat. So moving over to Pedro. Pedro, your backstory and how you ended up where you're at is pretty cool. But you wanted to go the wine route early, and then you got the real job, and you were in Silicon Valley, and you were doing that kind of thing, and then eventually you made your way back to it. I'd love for you to talk about that, please.
Yep. I'm a high-tech refugee at this point. That's the official title that I have. But before that, I actually grew up a farm kid up in Northern California. And, as a young kid going on the farm and getting dirty and driving tractors and getting up really early, I said, I am never going to do this for a living. And so, I went to school, and I got educated, and eventually ended up doing most of my career in Silicon Valley. And around 2008, my wife, Vicky, decided that she wanted to study to become a wine sommelier. And that sounded pretty cool. And I tagged along with her because I just wanted to drink the wine. I just wanted to have a good time. So I went to all of her tastings, and it was fun. And the more I tasted and the more I looked at what was happening, I really got interested in like this wine thing, like I want to learn how to do this even more. I had dabbled with it before, but at that point, I started making wine with some pals. And you know how that works. We'd buy, a couple 100 pounds of grapes and squash them, and they'd turn out like, not too good. And I had questions like, hey, why does it smell weird? And they'd be like, well, who knows? Or why are we putting that in there? And they'd be like, because it says so on the paper, it's a recipe. Anyway, being kind of a geeky guy, I didn't quite like that. So while I was still working, I enrolled in UC Davis. And 4 years later, I graduated as a certified winemaker. And it was perfect timing for me because I had already had a decent career, and I thought, it's always good to leave on a high note. And I left high tech, and I went into the glamorous life of winemaker consulting up in the Bay Area, which really means pulling hoses and washing tanks and, doing the messy stuff that nobody else wanted to do. And I did that for about 5 years at various wineries, kind of learning, putting into practice what I had learned academically at UC Davis. and started putting together with Vicky our brand and a couple of the wines that we marketed. We had a Chardonnay, a Tempranillo, and a Merlot, and that's what we started out with. And we had no winery and no tasting room, so we would just take our wine and pour it at various wine walks. And little by little, it got to the point where we actually decided that this was kind of taking off, and we actually needed to make more wines. So flash forward, around 2012, we bought the property here. So we're on 20 acres, and we resisted doing any planting of any kind because, like I said, we did, I never thought I'd be a farmer. And so we built the winery, opened it up in 2015. And just a year ago, we finally planted a block of Chardonnay, a block of Pinot Noir, and a block of Viognier. And those are all Champagne clones. So it's mainly mainly for the Champagne business. And the rest is all this fun. I think we just celebrated our 10th harvest officially. And it seems like it went by like that. But it's been a fun ride, and Vicky still talks to me, so that must have been a good thing.
I'm sure everybody has that kind of thing. Like, we still talk to each other. We're still good. We're in business, but we're still good, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to get into our first wine. So let's start talking about the wines that we're talking about, or that we're drinking. And Pedro, since we're ending on you, we're actually beginning with you with the wine, which is this, and cool label, by the way. Super
Thank you.
that. We are drinking, it's a Très Bien, which is a GSM blend of 50% Grenache, 25% Syrah, and 25% Mourvedre. Talk a little bit about this wine, where the fruit comes from, and all that good stuff.
Yes, when I first started doing the blending, I probably did it like anybody else. When you're a small winery, you don't have a huge amount of barrels, so you happen to have 3 barrels of Grenache and a barrel of Syrah and a barrel of Mourvedre, so you put them together and that's your blend. But it is 50% Grenache, 25 Syrah, and 25 Mourvedre. The Grenache comes right here about 100 yards away from the winery. My neighbor is a professional vineyard manager, and he has a bunch of stuff that we buy from him. It's a really light clone Grenache, so I also make our rosé from it. So we do a whole cluster press Grenache rosé. It's very light. Anyway, with this blend, I really like that the Grenache retains a lot of the fruity strawberry components, and the color is really the Syrah, with a little bit of savory, meaty angle to it. And the Mourvedre is kind of interesting. I buy the Mourvedre from Derby, just down the road from you guys.
Oh yeah,
Victor. And it's an interesting Mourvedre because when I'm fermenting it, it starts smelling like tropical fruit. It's really weird. It smells kind of like lychee or something tropical. And it does that for about 3 days, and then that goes away. And then then you can get the dark fruit. But anyway, it's a nice blend. It's a pretty traditional, I guess, Rhone blend, and pretty traditional for our area. It is, I try to do all my reds around 14, and I try to do all the whites around 12 to 13. And most of the time I hit it. So this is doing really well. It just got a double gold and best of class from the San Francisco Chronicle. So we're proud of it.
Oh, congratulations.
That's great.
Oh, thank you.
It is good.
Thank you. Thank you.
oh, it's quite delicious. Yeah, this is at 14.1% alcohol. Not that we always talk about alcohol, but but it's definitely one of those, I guess you could say, low alcohol in a sense, wines. Love
Relative.
Grenache. The Grenache is just, it's so, that red fruit is so bright, that's raspberry quality to it. I don't know. Vic, you're just about to say something. I'm sorry. What
Well,
are
I think low alcohol in Paso, you have to qualify that with relatively speaking.
That's true.
yeah. What do you guys think of the wine?
I think it is bright and exciting, and it really opened up. I opened it about 15 minutes before we started, and it is just unfolded. It's really, really beautiful. Really enjoying it. Good job, Pedro.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah, it's delicious. Pamela, I'm sorry, you were going to say something? Or
Oh,
Greg?
no, I was agreeing that it was really nice. That's the first one we tried. Very, very nice.
Yeah.
You know, I've tried to vary, because, when you start doing, like I was saying, we all do fractional blending based on what we have available. And I've actually tried blending, making this a heavier Syrah. It just doesn't taste the same. It
Mhm.
loses a lot of the fruity characteristics, and it tastes like a Syrah immediately if you bump it up too much. So now that I have a little bit more inventory available, I pretty much have stuck to the 50, 25, 25.
Mhm.
Just to make it easy for everybody, including me.
Yeah. I think it's an extraordinary wine. I like the way, on the forward, the aromas are a little deceptive, but they're wonderful. The Grenache is so bright and fresh, and it's got, and then, it transforms in the mid palate towards, a real good balance with spice and, with some depth in it. And then the finish is just remarkable. This is a good product, really
Thank you.
nice one.
Thank you. It's very difficult for me to keep anything. I wish that I could keep wine. We sell out stuff pretty quickly, but it's not because we're a huge success, but it's sort of based on the fact that I do 2 tons of pretty much everything because I can haul 2 tons in my truck. So I have a Chevrolet 2500 HD with an 8-foot bed, and I can put 4 bins on there. So,
Wow.
and it's pretty loaded up. So I never have it. I wish I could have a bigger truck and make more. But anyway, my point is that I make about 125 cases, and then I can't keep it. It just kind of goes. But one of these days, I'm going to talk to Vicky to get me a bigger truck.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a trailer, this thing called a trailer too. It works really, really well.
Yeah, I heard about that. I'm afraid of getting a trailer because then maybe I'll buy too much.
Ah, touche.
Yeah.
Oh, man, that's funny. Hey, Pedro, before we move on to the next wine, I'm curious, in your winemaking, and then from your previous life as being the Silicon Valley refugee, is there anything that you kind of took from that previous life and you apply it now into your winemaking style or technique or whatever it might be?
No, it's a real good question. Definitely, there are some things, and high tech is that part of the brain that is so regimented. A lot of planning, a lot of reviewing, a lot of forecasting. So if anything, I took all of that stuff and I brought it into our business. It's just Vicky and I, and we don't have any employees. So I have to sit down at the beginning of the year and plan out a lot of the year. So, as you can imagine, I have a lot of spreadsheets. So I think it's a majority. If anything, I brought back in here a lot of the stuff that I had picked up in high tech, and mainly it was the planning, the organization, that kind of stuff. I'm a musician as well, and I wish I could have brought more artistic stuff into here, but eventually.
I was going to circle back with you on the musician thing. We just dropped Greg and Pamela for some reason.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're going to come back in a second here. But I was going to circle back with you on that because we'll make an interesting connection. And I do this because Victor is over here and you're over here to stick in just a second. But I'd love to move on to Victor and your wine, Vines on the Mary Crest. This is the So What 2017. 50% Cabernet Sauvignon, 25% Sangiovese, and 25% Syrah. So this guy right here, really cool label as well. And so here you go on the end of things. But Victor, talk a little bit about this wine.
Well, this is my current favorite, which is why I shared it with everybody. When I was an amateur, my favorite wine to make was a Super Tuscan a Super Tuscan mimicking or styled wine. I think the best wine I think I've ever had was a Super Tuscan wine, and it always inspired me to try to reach those lofty heights. And so when I was an amateur, I'd make one of these every year, and I would buy. I heard you mention Cucamonga, Greg, and
Yes.
I used to buy grapes from Cucamonga for a number of years, and they were always my favorite grapes to get. They were so distinctive and just bizarre grapes. And I would make a Super Tuscan every year. And then when Jenny and I started the business in 04, we sort of, like Pedro, we sort of planned out these 5 wines that we were going to start out with, and a Super Tuscan wasn't part of the idea. So we carried on for about 12 years, doing what we were doing, before I realized, hey, I'm not making basically my favorite wine to drink, and the one I always got the most satisfaction out of making. So we actually retired a wine that was very popular in our tasting room to make this wine called So What, and Jenny named it. We name our blended wines after songs, and so we make about 8 or 9 different wines that are blends, and therefore they are named for songs. And this is a song that my daughter was basically born to, because she took about 3.5 days to come out, and we brought two CDs to the midwives at UCLA, and so we listened to those same CDs about 80 times or so each. And so one of them was Miles Davis, Kind of Blue, and this is So What is the opening song on Kind of Blue. And so Jenny always wanted to name a wine called So What, but it took about 12 years for a space to open up, to name a wine. And so yeah, this is a Super Tuscan, and the grapes are all purchased. We have plenty of grapes here, but none of these grapes are actually our own. And they kind of come from all over Paso. The Cabernet is from near Castoro Cellars. That would be, what is that? Templeton Gap. And then the Syrah is from Adelaida, and the Sangiovese is also from the Adelaida district. And really, really, really proud of this one. I have this way of drinking my own wines where I often am my own harshest critic, and like, okay, what would I do differently? Why don't I, what is it about this that I don't like? I can find lots of things I like about it, but I dig down and find out what I don't like about my particular wines. And this is one that I wouldn't change anything about. And so the Sangiovese just comes roaring through, 25%. Just that beautiful sour cherry and bright, your mouth kind of waters a little bit, and really, really happy with it. I love that 17 vintage all the way through. It's just about my favorite. I think 14 and 17 are my 2 favorite vintages in our 17 years here or so. So I hope you like it. I especially like it.
Yeah,
I really think it's a great wine. I make 100% Sangiovese, and I can smell Sangiovese in here, of course. It really comes out. But the thing I was going to mention is that I also make a Cabernet Tempranillo blend. And what I find is that the Tempranillo really quiets all the herbaceous notes that a Cabernet can actually push out. The bell peppery, the whatever, that it might be a little bit too much. And I think yours does the same thing. I mean, that Sangiovese really, really comes through beautifully. It calms down the Cabernet, and then the Syrah just gives it a lot of backbone. It's really nice. I like it.
Thank you.
it's very nice.
I really like it.
No, Victor,
I love.
Victor,
Yeah.
do you filter your wines?
Not my reds.
Not your reds?
No.
Nice.
Yeah,
It is nice.
you might get the end of the and find gifts in there, but yeah, we're sort of a little crunchy stuff at the end.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, but that's okay. We like it that way.
Sure.
So Victor, your background as a recording engineer, I think, is where you find this inspiration of naming wines after songs. Is that right?
That is correct. I was a musician, or some would say, for about 35 years also. So,
Okay.
yeah.
And then
But that,
how does that play into the business now? Because I know you have a little interesting story about the space that you're in.
yeah, this pretty building we're in, we had so long to think about it, you know, getting the permits and saving the money to actually build this thing. It was close to 9 years of planning to build this building, and somewhere along the way, I decided that I really missed recording, because when I moved up here, I was pretty much done with it. And so in that long period of waiting for this building to be completed, I decided I was going to build it as a full-blown recording studio. So it is wired with easily 1.5 miles plus of cable. There's a 24-track digital recorder. We have vintage microphones, vintage preamps, all handmade. And we bring really wonderful people from all over the world to play here a few times a year. And we record these shows. And last year or so, we put out a little CD. I think I gave you one.
You did. It's in the car. I was going to hold it up and I forgot. And I've actually been listening to it.
That's all right. So we did a 5-year snapshot or retrospective of live recordings done here. That includes Grammy winners, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame members, Rockabilly Hall of Famers, multiple people nominated for Grammys. So we don't have music very often. Here it is. This is called Back Patio Bliss. It's a really wonderful cover. If you can see that, my friend Tom, who I just saw yesterday, made this cover for us, and that's all cut paper. There's no ink or paint or graphite or anything. This is all cut pieces of paper.
Wow.
Wow.
And it's pretty remarkable. Yeah, it's something else. And so we're really proud of it. I flew to New York City to master that with the best mastering engineer in the world. I wrote him a letter and told him what I had done and who I was and what I used to do and what I do now. And I asked him if he would master this record for us for free. And he said, "Are you coming?" And which meant yes. Yeah. And so I spent close to 7 hours with the great Greg Calby in Lower Manhattan with a view of Statue of Liberty right out my, just to my left. And I've been in the studios with Stevie Ray Vaughan, Bruce Springsteen, Judas Priest, Ronnie James Dio, more than I can remember. And that was my greatest thrill, was working on this particular project with Greg Calby. So it's really a source of pride for me. And yeah, so we give most of the proceeds from this CD back to the artists, and as a little thank you for coming to play and supporting music and whatnot. So I worked really hard on it, and I'm really, really proud of it.
On. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, and especially with me as well, because that's really cool. That was a neat treat when you dropped off those wines. So awesome stuff.
Thank you. My pleasure.
We're gonna move on to the Seven Angels Petite Sirah here, but before we do, we had somebody over on Facebook say, "Greg, I grew up in Ontario Upland. My dad worked at Kaiser Hospital in Fontana, and I went to college at UCR. So from the same neck of the woods. Remember Virginia Dare Winery in Cucamonga?"
Oh gosh, that was a while ago, but I actually Dad was in the military, so we moved when I was 9 years old. So most of my playtime was in the vineyard, but not with not socializing too much.
Weren't drinking that much wine at that age.
Yeah, it wasn't really tipping that jug. I think my dad's jug was always under the sink where I couldn't find it. So yeah, but that's a great recall. Yeah, that's where commercial wine was first started in 1830. The history of this evolution of wine in California is so rich and varied. That's one strong reason to have a big part of my passion connect with that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. LA actually had a great majority of the vineyards originally
Yeah.
before they were, ripped out as expansion
Yeah.
happened and things moved on.
I'd like to point out that up until maybe 15, 20 years ago, if you were driving on the freeway anywhere near Riverside, Cucamonga, that there were actually grapevines growing in the median between the north and southbound lanes
Right.
of the 405, and people would jump out and literally pick grapes and take them. And yeah, I'm not sure that's so anymore, but I actually remember seeing them when I would go pick up my my Cucamonga dog's breath grapes I used to buy. So
We had another Cucamonga thing here. Carol Shelton does one of her zins from Cucamonga. She calls it Manga Zin. So,
That's kind of interesting because you know, this is always an ongoing study, this industry, and I do recall you know, the best Zinfandel I had in the Point South Temecula area. I fell in love with this Zen, and I thought, gosh, how are they growing it here? That, you know, the soils don't seem to be, you know, conducive to it. And then I looked at the label and they said, oh, it's Cucamonga grapes. Okay, got it now. But yeah, so you never know until you can find you know, the heartbeat of its origin. You know, that's Zinfandel, one of my favorites.
and then Petite Syrah is what we have from you today, which
Yes.
is like right there. The little shimmer on that 7A is kind of cool, actually. Wings actually with the light on them. That's really neat, actually. I swear I've only been having wine, nothing else. I'm not tripping. But anyway, 100% Petite Syrah.
The reason we chose this to use for today is because this year has been strange with wine competitions and festivals and fairs and wine tastings. We've basically done nothing all year, but the Central Coast Wine Competition still was held, even though it wasn't held at, you know, on the fairgrounds with lots of people there. But we got a gold medal on this 2016 Petite Syrah. We just were informed about, I don't know, a week and a half ago. And we were pretty proud of the fact because we tasted it and we loved it. And we thought it was a really good wine. Plus, in 2009, our first wine, our flagship wine was Petite Syrah. So we've been making Petite Syrah every single year. And I hope you give us some feedback on what you think about this wine. And I just wanted to mention, Victor, I love the story behind your the names of your wines, because that means it's a connection for you guys. Our wines, if they're a single varietal, they're called Petite Syrah or Cabernet or Zinfandel. But if they're a fanciful and they're a blend, they're all names that have to do with our label as well. So we have Confession and Grace and Kindred Spirits, and not Kindred Spirits, Kindred, but it goes with Kindred Spirits, and Unorthodox. So labels and what you name your wine should have a personal connection. And I love your story.
thank you.
Great.
And you. Yeah, I mean, what the heck is it if it's not, it comes from, there's a lot of blood in wine, you know, literally and hopefully figuratively more than literally, but the way we make it, there's blood occasionally. And,
Amen to that.
That's for you to
Yeah.
find.
yeah.
That's why it's a little rusty.
So, yeah, right. Iron, lots of iron. Yeah. So, yeah. Cheers. Thank you. Yeah, it's so personal, and you shepherd these wines for for at least 2 years if they're red, and you know, they go through stages like children, and they you know, hopefully they come out the other side good citizens, you know. But yeah, they're yeah, it's really kind of a it's like parenting, you know. I reckon.
I
You know,
love, I love the richness of it. I love how it's Petite Syrah, and yet it's not overly tannic. There's the amount of acid in here is still actually kind of, kind of zinging through what would be a very kind of large kind of texture that would normally be in your mouth from a Petite Syrah. It helps to kind of tone it down a little bit, it seems like. So it's a
I agree. I agree. Well, the problem with Petite Syrah is if it gets too fat and it doesn't excite, it's just kind of this weight you put in your mouth, you know? So it is exciting. And there's lovely, it's on the, it's plush, but it's on the number line. It's on the early side of Petite, where I think things can get dynamic and exciting. If it gets too ripe and fat, it's just kind of boring, you know? It'll take on a one note sort of characteristic. So this is really jumping around. It's a nice wine.
Thanks.
It really is.
I really like I think you did a great job on the balance. I mean, you know, it's got all I make a Petite Syrah as well. It's got all the Petite Syrah fruit components, big and bold. But I really like the acidity. It's got a nice acidity that I think balances it off really nice. So definitely for those people that want a big wine or a bigger, bolder wine with a nice steak or filet or whatever, I think this is definitely a great candidate. But it's also great just cocktailing with it.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Yes, cheers to that.
Cheers to that. Hey, Greg. So your time spent in the Coast Guard. You traveled a bit. You were in the military. And is there anything maybe that correlates to your winemaking and what came of that? Like, are we seeing anything as far as style and again nature of your winemaking style in the bottle?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a whole nother component. One thing is you know, we're kind of distinctive in what type of barrels we use with certain varietals. For instance, the Petite Syrah is I actually use Hungarian oak with Petite Syrah, and I use Hungarian oak on our Zinfandel as well. So, and I feel, and sometimes it's anywhere from 30% to well, even 20% to 40-45% new, and I like the Hungarian oak in one respect because it imparts a little bit more food baking spice characteristics, and just to go a little bit further beyond the barrel programs, our biggest I think our biggest success is our blending trials, whether it's a single varietal or a blend. I've got my ace right here. She's the culinary artist behind Seven Angels, and she has a great palate for food and can go into anybody's kitchen and come up with anything, and it's remarkable. So we take our time and exercise a great deal of patience when we get to the blending of our products, and also the barrel aging. We take it on a barrel to barrel basis, and we that's part of, I think, what helps capitalize the quality of this product is we care for it just like we do our children, and we know it continues to evolve far after bottling, and so it's like this Petite Syrah. It's a bold Petite. It's a 14.8. I'm not bashful about that. I think sometimes that's one reason sometimes we hold back and let it bottle age a little more. This is our 16 Petite Syrah, and we just released it. So there you go.
Yeah. Once again, relatively speaking, 14.8 for a Petite Syrah, mind you. That's pretty low.
Yeah, yeah.
And the
It is.
alcohol is so balanced in this. It really actually doesn't really zing through at all. If anything,
Good. Glad you guys think that. That's good.
yeah. So, hey, there.
Oh,
We have our grand angel right here, who just showed up on
Say hi.
my wife's. Her
See the
name.
smile?
This is Mackie Rue. She's tomboy from the word go, right, Mackie? Yeah.
Right on. There you go. You're going to have help in the vineyard soon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right on. Great stories being told here. I'm so stoked to have been able to hang out with all of you for this hour. If you can believe, an hour almost has gone already by. I want to give everybody another opportunity to actually say maybe what's happening next with them. Victor, you had your last press today. Are you guys doing virtual things? Like what's happening with you?
I'm going to be virtually sleeping for a while, and
We're gonna work on a little library tasting.
yeah, we're thinking about. We've never done a library tasting. We've been here so long, and we've never done anything resembling that. So that is sort of it isn't even beyond the conceptual stage yet. But this whole situation we're in, it makes it a little delicate. So I've got vineyards to plant. I got vineyards to take out, and just rest up a little bit. And it was a pretty interesting, 3.5 months. We start very early because, like Pedro, we make sparkling wine, and so we start, first week of August or so, and it never let up. So, yeah. I
And
don't
it's
know.
just the two of you. It's
Concerts and it is.
Yeah.
Ridiculously, yes. Or comically, yes.
That's what makes.
Yeah. So yeah, as far as music goes, we're chomping at the bit to. Let's just put it this way: when we can all have safely gather together, we're gonna go even harder with music, and we're gonna do some really, really special things. And I have some sort of promises in the bank of some incredibly wonderful people to come play here that have already sort of agreed to do so. So it's just when the coast is clear, you better watch out and hopefully, come and join us, because we know how to do it.
We'd love to. We'd love to.
Yeah.
Please do. So, but yeah, it's just a little break, maybe a day or two. And then, I was talking to Pedro before we started, how my, and his 2019s are in need of a little attention. So I need to jump right back in and look at some wine that's been hanging out a year or so. So, but I really appreciate the opportunity to join everybody, and it's an honor to do it. So, and it's really nice I know Pedro well, and it's nice to meet you two down there in my bottom right corner.
Yeah.
And Chris, thank you for thinking of us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that we got you on finally, although I shouldn't say finally, because like I said at the beginning of the show, there's so many brands here in Paso, and we've done maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 of these shows. I actually don't even know. I've kind of lost count, but there's more to go, right? So let's go back over to the Martins real quick. What you got coming up here anytime soon? Are you guys, you're open for business, but are you doing any virtual things too?
Well, we haven't done any virtual things, but we were approached by an artist, a professional artist who teaches art, and he asked if we could do a tasting with some of his students, and it would basically be that they would come out here and photograph some of our vineyards and our property, and then they would go back and paint their own rendition of what they saw in the photographs, and then we would all taste wine while sharing the art.
Yeah.
And we thought it was kind of a cool thing because I was an art major in college.
Nice.
So sorry, I'm getting stuff through here to try to cover everybody, right? And so, Pedro, we're going to toss it over to you. You're last but not least, of course. But I'd love to hear if you've got anything new coming up or if you're going to be doing anything virtual as well for everybody to be aware of.
Yep. Well, as far as on the winemaking side, the next week is going to be washing stuff and putting it away, getting rid of it, hiding it, moving on to the next thing. I'm about to start disgorging all of the 2019 sparkling wines. I have 3 this year. I've got a Blanc de Blanc, a Blanc de Noir, and a Rosé. And I'm going to be setting up my disgorging line. And I leave it up so that if people come to taste, I think it's going to be a quick mask up and come on in, and I'll show people how, what it actually means to disgorge wine. So I'll have that set up. We're not doing a lot of events. We never have done any huge type of events, but we are doing a lot more Zooms. Most of them are private Zooms with parties or whatever like that. And then the only thing that's coming up this weekend, we have a sort of a fundraiser here for the Pleasant Valley Wine Trail. It's called Can for Cabs. So come by, bring a can of food, taste cabs. Everybody wins. So that's pretty much it.
That's cool. Right on. We'll have to talk to you again about some of that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That's a pretty neat thing that you guys do out there. So very cool. Right on. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today for our hangout.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate
Thank
it.
you very much.
We will have another one next week. If things go the way I think they're going to go, we're going to have a harvest show next week. During harvest, it's funny, but I try to get people to go, and sometimes they can and sometimes they can't. But I think we're going to have a kind of a harvest wrap up next week. And we're actually going to talk to growers, not winemakers next week. And we're going to talk about this year in 2020 and all of the challenges that came of this year, because there's been a lot. Trust me, there's been a lot. It's been an interesting year. And so that's what we're going to talk about. And then coming up soon, we're going to be talking about the Geneseo district. We're even going to do a beer show here pretty soon. And so stay tuned. Go to pasowine.com to see all of the upcoming shows and when they're scheduled for. Of course, the holidays are coming up. And so we're going to have some gaps in time and scheduling. I might even be doing a show from Boston potentially. So we'll see, because I might have to travel here pretty soon. But we're going to try to keep things going into the new year. So thank you again for joining me. Thank you, Victor and Jennifer. Thank you, Pedro, and to Vicky, if you're driving up the driveway right now. And then Greg and Pamela, thank you so much. Pamela, again, happy birthday and cheers.
Cheers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you very much. Thanks for including us.
Yeah, and thank you so much for your talent. We really appreciate it.
You did a great job. Good job, babe.
Thanks,
Thank
man. Appreciate it. All right. We'll see ya. Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.